All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Lunch and Learn today. My name is Jeremy on the training team, and I will be leading our call today. Um, got a few people hopping in already, so if you have any questions, please go ahead and type them up in the Q&A, and I'll be happy to try my best to answer them and learn some stuff. Help you learn, maybe learn myself, whatever we got going today. Yeah, so type up whatever questions you got. I don't believe we had any pre-subs today. In the meantime, while you all have a chance to type anything up, if you have any questions, I'll just do a quick call out for the usual stuff. Check out our YouTube channel. Got quite a few good things there. We recently put up a video about building things in Excel, and a couple of the highlighting a bunch of the different decision steps that you can use and ways that you could use steps and decisions and like reports and things to build Excel files. So there's some pretty cool stuff in there. Um, as well as the usual lunch and learns and other things. So that's our YouTube channel up at the top. You can also check out the Solutions Marketplace. Lots of great applications and things to try out there as well. So if you're interested in, kind of just seeing some things or maybe getting an idea of something that you'd like to try, you can check those things out as well. So that's what these are here. All right, give it another minute. If anyone has any questions they'd like to post. Oh, Shane, sorry, I don't know if you had that up for long. I just saw your hand up. Shane, go ahead. I give you the opportunity to speak. You can go ahead and ask your question.
Hello, Jeremy. The chat is disabled, so I need to
Oh,
put
it's
it in the
disabled?
Q&A.
Oh,
Okay, I can put the question in the Q&A.
yeah, put it in the Q&A.
Okay.
That'd be great.
My question is, I try to send the email using the steps, send the email. I set up the SMTP setting as well, and I got the authentication unsuccessful.
Okay.
Know how to fix that. I used my own email address. I try to test it, so definitely I know my password. So I don't know why it is unsuccessful.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna take a look. Okay. Error running steps, send email. Authentication unsuccessful. Account having issue. Contact administrator. Okay. The best I can tell from reading this might be a little too difficult for me to try to figure out for you on the lunch and learn call, because it looks to me like this might be something related to um some kind of authentication issue or something related to your SMTP server setup stuff. Um, because the exception is noting something in regex as like the root of the problem, and it's just saying that there's something with an authentication being unsuccessful. So my best guess for this, especially because I don't even have an SMTP server to do any testing at the moment, um, on the fly right now. So my best guess would be you're probably better off sending this, um, if you have anyone in your company that has the admin ability to check on this, then they can do it. But also the support team would be best to be able to tell you like exactly what is like if they've seen this issue more often, because that's what it looks like to me reading this. Some kind of SMTP error, and I just don't have a good way to test that on the fly at the moment. Um, I have my stuff will just be is just set up with direct, and I don't have any actual SMTP to test this on.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Yep. Smitha, I just saw you also said on the email, is there some setting we need to check, setting indecisions? Can you clarify? I just gave you the ability to speak.
Yeah, thank you. Sean and me are from the same team.
Mhm.
So we were wondering, is there some particular settings in decisions that we can check? Like we did read about some, we don't want to change anything, right? Like the
Mhm.
settings or XML and things like that, because it's all decisions files and we don't want to bring the system down. But for this email to work, is there something else we can just check on our end before emailing you guys?
There might be. Let me take a quick look at something.
And we are on version 9.
On version 9. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Um, Here. Let me grab this email step. Okay. Well, so one thing you can do maybe a little bit of checking on is in the send email step, there are SMTP settings, and obviously by default, it's going to use your default SMTP settings. You can change that, um, uncheck that, and you can look through things here. Just, this will be like in this flow, you can check your details to try to set up with the information you have for your SMTP server. Um, and everything, obviously, if it requires authentication and providing that information, and maybe that might just be enough for you to figure out if maybe your like account that you're using or whatever it's through, just might not have the authentication because that's what that error states, right? It states that you don't have the authentication to actually, to send the email and whatnot. So it may just be, you know, through whatever you're using at the moment may just not have authentication and that just needs to be edited on your side or affected on your side, but like you can do that just in a flow like on a step so you don't use the default ones so you don't have to mess with any settings from there as like a test.
Sure, that we can check with our help desk, but the otherwise the SMTP on the server itself is usually done when we are setting up the decision server, right? There's nothing else we need to do. Is
I
that
believe
understanding
I
correct?
believe so, and I believe you can change it. Right, you can go to the settings
Okay.
XML file and
Yeah,
change it. Obviously, you just have to be a little careful with it, but
right.
um, you know,
So
you can go
that's
back and change that as well.
Yeah, that's where I wanted to know. Like, okay, let's try this, and then if it doesn't work, I don't want to change that settings.xml file, but if there are some pointers there, that's where I was looking at. Like, if you can let us know what I need to check in that settings.xml, we can check. Is
Mhm.
that on some documentation, or where can we look at that part?
Um, let's see. Yeah, I mean, so obviously you have the settings XML where you could, you know, look for and change, um, you know, this stuff. There's your SMTP server data, but like I mentioned, right, you'll notice like all of the same thing, like their server address and all that stuff is the same as
Mm.
what I have in here. So I believe that this is my best assumption because I personally haven't done much with SMTP servers. Um, but I believe you would be able to just test this on a single step with the data and making sure that
Okay,
you have the right information. And if you can get it to work with this, then you'll know what information to change on your settings XML.
okay,
Because
got
maybe
you.
there's something on your settings XML that just needs adjusted. But if you can get it to work with this, this has all of this information should be the same. You know, you got what
Got
server
it.
address, client domain, your ports down here, you know, username and password for authentication, use SSL is there, you know, all that stuff is the same here. So that'll hopefully at least allow you to test it. And then if that's still can't quite get it figured out, then yeah, the support team should be able to lead you a little bit better in the right direction.
Okay, got you. We'll try this. Thank you.
Ooh, actually also, yeah, I don't know if you looked at this. This is the documentation on SMTP stuff. It kind of details a lot about the location and things that you can change, a
Sure.
couple settings and stuff as well. I can post this in the chat real quick too, so you can hopefully see it.
Thank you.
Mhm. All right. Anyone else? Any questions? Feel free, raise your hand or post them in the Q&A, and I'd be happy to take another look at anything. All right. Well, I don't want to end this too early because we've only been here for 15 minutes. So I'm just gonna pull up something and kind of explore it a little bit. Just so we have something in case anyone else comes up with another question or someone joins a little late. I would actually, this is something kind of neat that was actually added in version 9, 9.3 specifically. So if you're in earlier versions of version 9 and it doesn't exist in version 8, that's kind of neat. We actually have a formula builder and decisions now. That's kind of like its own separate designer. It's a lot different than some of the other designers. So I can show this off a little bit. So this is a cool, pretty neat designer actually that we have available. So you can create and build out a number of different functions and decisions. So and it comes directly from the rules. So you can find it under rules um, in decisions, but you can actually configure it. So the designer looks a lot different than a lot of the other designers, but for the most part, it's got some of the um, similarities and things. So, you know, you've got input data just like, you know, most other designers have, where you can edit, you know, what the data is, it'll actually default to double, which is kind of interesting, just because most, typically when you think of formulas, you're going to be thinking of the like mathematical kind of formulas, and things like that. So it does default to double instead of string, like most of our inputs typically default to, just because that's often would be the most common use in this. And then we have these little tabs here too that you can adjust things with. So your configure is where you're going to set up the name and all the input data, and it'll display the output type based on the information in your formula that you're building in here. So, I don't have anything configured yet, so it's just going to say double. But, if I had a function or a formula of some kind that's supposed to output just an integer or whatever for some reason, it'll actually change this just to address whatever it is. Functions is we have a list of all of our like various functions that are available and the different formulas that you can build in the formula builder. And then just like you could in like a flow and stuff like that, you can actually set up unit tests if you want to build out a unit test. There's like a little debugger in the designer here. I'm just gonna make this bigger so I can actually see the full screen. You can set up unit tests. I don't have inputs yet, but just like you would in a flow, you can set unit tests up, add the rule for them and everything like that to kind of build it out and check. We can also do integration with the API if you want. So you can set up the API connection to this formula if you need to do anything with the formula and everything. And then we have a bunch of different functions. And so the one thing that I do know for sure about this is it's not completely custom. Like you can't just type whatever you want here. You are limited, at least at the moment, to the functions that we have in decisions. But there's a lot of different things you can do, right? So a lot of like the basic math functions, absolute value and stuff like that. They're exactly which specifically which format they're in, but they do match a common format for a lot of these like functions and things. But basically you just pick a function, you click it, and it'll automatically add it to your formula builder up here. The green represents the actual function that it's running, whatever this function is actually called to emphasize what it's running. And then you'll have purple, which is the actual parameters and items that are going to be run through this, right? And so in this case, right, you hover over it, it does tell you what it's expecting. So right, I have like a string value in here, but it's expecting a double. And so, I'm expected to put some kind of number in here, right? So I put a number in there that's representing. I can also put inputs in these if I have expected inputs in something. Right, so if I like put some kind of number value in here as an input, I can actually use that number value in here. You'll see if I start to type it, it'll actually pop up. And so then it will pull the number value from my inputs and run it through this function. So if I put like 3 in here, there's my little debugger, I can play it and it'll run that through and say, hey, what's the absolute value of 3? And it'll give me that number. I can put other things into here as well. Hit play, the absolute value of -3 is 3. And it'll kind of show you a whole bunch of things. The other thing too that I know about this is, for Lara, I grabbed a very poor example or a very simple example of a function here. But if it's a function that's got a bunch of nested values in it, things like multiple things happening at once, this output will actually display a whole tree of data, kind of showing the process of how it moves from one thing to the next. I can set that up here if I wanted to with other things. You can nest multiple functions inside each other if you wanted to. For whatever reason, a lot of different ways that you can kind of adjust and take something to work through your data and stuff. Like I could put an absolute value inside an absolute value if I really wanted to, and put my data in here, put it through, and if I hit play, you can see there's like an example of a tree, right? So it does like that first part first, the absolute value of -3 to get 3, then the absolute value of that to get that number. And so yeah, it's a pretty neat functionality that we've added in 9.3. So there's a lot of really cool stuff here. You know, to kind of display stuff. You could do different date specific items here. So, you know, if I wanted to add days, right, I can have the initial, it's expecting a date time. So what's the initial date there? And then I have days, which is a double, right? The how many days I want to add to it to say, okay, add days. So I want to add maybe 3 days, or I guess this could be, I could use this as my number value, right? Add my number value to a date, and I don't know, I'd have to put the correct format, you know, but something like that. And then I could actually just add days to that value and run that process. There's a lot of really great and interesting things. You can add conditional ifs, if condition, some kind of condition true or false. There's a lot of array based things. If I want to have, you know, provide an array and I can get the account of that array. You can join things. We have financial specific functions. So if you're looking at any kind of finance specific, you know, if you know what any of these shorthands are a reference to, you know, there's a lot of like financial things. You got logics, ands, nots, if nulls, things like that. There's string based ones, so you can actually do like string contains, you know, stuff like that. There's a lot of different things you can actually set up in the formula builder. And again, you can build like a big formula with a lot of nested functions within it. Small things, you can have these be inputs. You can literally type out constants, you know, whatever it is that you're looking for. You can build it out in the formula builder. So it's a pretty neat thing now, and really just allows for more, you know, maybe a different way of doing some things. Like whereas before you would have had to build flows out to do some of this, and this can definitely simplify some elements of that. You know, instead of having to place 5 different steps in it, you may know, you know, the formulas. And some people probably even already have, you know, if they're familiar with some of the, you know, the way that this stuff is written, they might already kind of have an idea of what their formula is. So they just simply need to add those items, place the values in, and they can build out a really, you know, a neat little formula. And then once this gets created, you can simply just add it into a flow at any time. So if I just put this back to my number value one real quick, leave it as this simple one. If I save it and I go into any flow, I'm just going to use the email flow from earlier. You can actually just simply add formulas into decisions, into your flows. So then your flow can just hit that formula and run it. And it'll work just like, you know, a lot of the, you know, show form step, or, you know, an add task step, or a run subflow step, or a run rule step. You know, you pick the formula, look for any existing ones. Here's the one that I just made. And then obviously it just pops in with all the data. All right, here's my number value. I can just set it to something that whatever I want. And then I can easily just run this now. And so now my flow will run the formula, output its result, and, you know, I could use that in a flow to get data. And it may, you know, help and assist in building out, you know, various types of things in a process. I know one thing for sure I can think of is using this to do some of the math steps that we've done in one of our training projects that was built well before they added this in 9.3. But now training in version 9, you could actually probably use this and make that process a lot easier and look a lot nicer. So it's some pretty cool stuff. All right. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't notice this. VT is actually maybe has a little extra something. I'll let you speak, VT, if you want to, you know, add to this. But VT did ask in the Q&A for you, Shan, in relation to your question, if you're on Azure regarding this send email issue.
Yeah, I did some search and I found that 535 that basically doesn't relate to Rebux. It relates to that Outlook account, so Microsoft stuff. And also I found that if you're on Azure, probably the issue could be in security on Azure. side. So you need to log into Azure as an admin, disable security defaults. And then on that specific account, you need to exclude that user from a conditional access policy, which will block legacy authentication. I'm not sure if that's going to help, but at least something.
I don't know if Sean is there, but yeah, sure, we can check with our admins and check with them if this is a possibility. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Yeah, great. Thanks for inputting on that for sure. All right. Oh, we got another question in the chat now as well. Alexander Stewart, where can I learn more about your process mining tool? That's a great question. We actually have a process mining training that you can sign up for as well. I believe it should just be here. Maybe they removed it. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Training courses. So we've got like the main things, but we also have a decisions process mining. If you go to decisions.com/training, and you scroll down a little bit, let's start training courses. These are our main three training focuses, the introductory course and then the two developer kind of course ways. But we do also have process mining, and going to register here will allow you to register for that process mining. And it will set you up. If you already have our account at learn.decisions.com, it should just sign you up and add that as a course on learn.decisions.com. So you can just continue that process from there, and you should see that new lesson and you can get started with it. And that goes through, videos to talk about how to set it up, videos to talk about what it does, a download XML file that you could actually use to, practice a little bit with process mining and stuff like that. So yeah, so pretty easy to get to, the decisions.com/training, and then you can just sign up for it. There are videos attached to the lessons, but I don't think we have any specific like general videos over it. I can check, but I think everything is directly tied to the course. But once you sign up for the course, it'll all be right there, and you can easily just go through all the videos that we have on the topic. Okay. Manal has a question as well. Okay. Is there a way to change a color on the drop-down box if a specific input is selected? For example, if the user selected yes in the drop-down, it'll turn green. If they select no, it'll turn red. Just quick clarification. Oh, sorry. Quick clarification. Are you referring to like the background of the drop-down box changing
Yes.
color or something else?
Yes, just the box, the background changes, or any way like it just changes to red, green, whenever they select specific things like yes or no.
I believe I have the answer. I'm gonna just check real quick.
Thank you.
I believe on its own, I believe the answer is no. I know you can, just on a box, set things. Backgrounds. I know you can set background colors and things on a lot of items within forms and stuff like that. But I don't think you can change automatically. Like if I just make a test active form flow here, just to demonstrate this. Like this. if I were to look at like what information I could pass into an active form flow to like check it or change, you know, I can take that drop down box, but the only things I can really change is the text that's in it, any validation issues related to it. I can change whether or not it is disabled or visible. But there is not anything that allows me to, you know, change the background. You know, like at least within decisions, right? Like,
Yeah, because I have like a really big form, and then users usually select like yes or no, and whenever they do that, it's supposed to kind of come up as red or any colors so they can actually see it. Otherwise, if they miss it, they'll like mess up a lot of stuff on the form. So I was just wondering if there's any way to like either highlight it or color it.
yeah, yeah, within decisions, like the active form flow, I mean, you can do simply like a validation issue or something to like require something. Um, you know, you can do that. Form rules. In an active form flow, right? You can set validations. It wouldn't necessarily like, you know, what it'll do is like the typical like validation arrow, like a little red box around like boxes. You can set validations over certain items. So if you have some kind of, you know, like a form control that you want to block out or like kind of highlight, you could do that. It's not like it by itself, it's not customizable in that you can, you know, I can just go ahead and grab my drop down, um, you know, and like change the color of it. The color, it's basically like this, where it'll just kind of outline the box in red, and say, hey, there's an issue. Please fill this out. Don't miss this thing, whatever. Um, you know, and you can have like validation issues appear like from the start if you want. So I can have this issue appearing, like if it's just as simply as, you know, you want to make sure that someone changes a value in a box to what they want, you can have it default to blank, then have a set validations that will set a validation at startup. And then, you know, do something like this. Don't want them to be able to move on yet and say, you know, please change this value. And then you'd need like afterwards, you'd need to run a rule that would, you know, be able to check did they change the value in that box? If yes, then clear the validations. You know, something like that. And then from there, you should be able to this. Right? You can have this be have a validation run at startup. And then it would also trigger and check anytime someone like picks something in the dropdown. And now from the moment that someone opens this, it should hopefully like display a little note. It may not be exactly what we want though. Come on, decisions. So if I grab this form, from the moment, right, it'll automatically appear to at least notify them to change it. And then I didn't set it up, but you know, you could set a rule afterwards to say, hey, did they change it? If they did, you know, then you can make this validation go away and you can prevent them from submitting until they fix that. If it's something just simple as that, you like want them to miss it or not miss it. But then back to your like original request to simply change the background of something based on a selection that they've chosen. I don't think we can't do that in decisions naturally. That one you're going to have to mess with and work with some CSS and stuff like that to try to, you know, check the information in that field and change the background color based on the information that's there.
Gotcha. That makes sense. On those lines, I know this is probably a random question too. In the
Mhm.
data repeaters, there's also no way to, wait, actually, I think I just found a documentation on that one. So that's perfect.
Okay.
I'll try to create like a validation or something with that in lines.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Sure, no problem. All right. Any other questions from anyone today? All right. Well, I see quite a few people have already dropped off. If we have no other questions. Oh, thank you, VT, for that note. Manal already left, but I can definitely send that and make sure that she gets that information. Right. With that in mind, we will go ahead and end for the day. Thank you all for joining, asking questions, helping out with questions as well. And we'll stop there. We will continue tomorrow. It'll be me again. So I'll see you all tomorrow if you're going to hop back in. Otherwise, have a great rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.